G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Off Ukraine War Update for the 18th of June 2026. As the war continues, I will continue to provide you with reliable news and information from inside the manosphere. Now, the war of words continues, and so many people on both sides believe the propaganda. War is not a glorious endeavour in which there are heroes and villains. There are desperate people doing desperate things to survive. War doesn't pick who's right or wrong. It decides only who's left. When peace was offered to Ukraine for the last 3+ years, they have turned it down every time. Now all of a sudden they're trying to take the high horse. And of course, yes, it's because they are losing lots of European leaders are worried with the increasing stability back home, that they're sacrificing of their own economies for a foreign country that not long ago was lined up to kill us with glee and spread their glorious revolution. But how forgiving the left is when the Ukraine is offering to spread the glorious revolution, their glorious revolution, blended in with their own. So the poorest country in Europe is set to make Europe the poorest region in the world with its idiotic war. But the majority believe the narrative that Ukraine is the victim, and that is a powerful political message. Now, parts of Kiev, Podvalia, Podvalia and Dnipro were hit. Zaporozhye was a drone attack on the Ukrainians outside the city. Alright, so it is a weird situation, but instead of advancing on the front, it seems Russia's opening up more of the front on the north. But they do this every so often. It's all to draw Ukrainians off the front. Does not appear to be anything new in Kupiansk. It's action without results in many parts of the front, or very little results, but nothing significant in the Lyman area. Small gains. Again, in Kutuzovka, the Russians have made some gains here in the south. They have broken the Ukrainian lines here, taken most of Preshnovka and most of Ivanvilia, but they've done this before. Have not crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's yet, but they have broken through the Ukrainian lines and taken one of the key points of Kutuzovka, though there are other areas still in Ukrainian hands. But the Russian forces have made it close to and one of the administration centers and several centers here as well. But by breaking the lines, they have they're almost controlling the junction as well between the two halves of the city. Though the southern route is mostly probably now drone and airdrops. those will get less, and eventually you'll see probably, how far up do you think it'll go? Up to the street? Up to here? Or will it slowly increment? Well, as you can see, bear stock and others have fallen. Now, the Russians in some areas have consolidated their positions back at these lines. The northern thrust has turned inward, of course, but that's to be expected. But I thought if they were going to break through and cut off Kostnikovia, or at least threaten that they would cause, but they're trying to still operate on the premise to funnel the Ukrainians out. As you can see, there was other areas where they have slowly advanced, but there are areas where they've halted and suddenly broke through, But so there's a sudden shift. This is interesting. With the advancing towards the Pavilia, they've had a breakthrough here. Small breakthrough here for whatever reason. The Ukrainians still want to hold on to this rail junction, even though they don't control the majority of the rail in that area. And the Deadpan area line, they're not going to open it up because the train has to come through here. They're unloading up here, and as well as overland transports, they are not relying solely on rail anyway. Now, though Belishki's been able to hold for quite some time, they have seen the outskirts slowly fall, and the Russians are slowly pushing their way through. Same here. After this held for a while. Now, this held for a while now. We'll see whether or not. But for whatever reason, they're still keeping parts of this road open and not pushing up through here yet. It is because they are operating on a limited budget. Now, it appears that you have 4 defenders, 2 attackers at any one time. And over in that, even then you break it down, and you'll have somewhere between 230 and 250 attacks on Ukraine daily. Now, these all individually go through a command filter in which the local commander is given probably a 5-minute pitch. So, and is whether or not they get the next day a second pallet of ammunition. And if security thinks it's a go, they probably even get a third, and they get to prove for that. And if they don't, as you notice, areas where they don't do, after a few days, go quiet, and other areas get that ammunition. So if you see this sea of red, this is a priority. This is a priority. This is a priority. The rest of the front just plays catch up, although seems to be a priority here right now. But as you can see, there's parts of the front where no one has a tactical advantage. The loss of life will be too great. And the reality is, these are just to bring up big guns for the eventual siege of Kreros, just setting up positions, putting Ukrainians on notice, having them playing too many scenarios in their head for any one person to keep up. Now, we know Ukraine is conducting, 25,000 transactions a day on average. Sorry, 25,000 transactions per hour with AI in Taiwan. And that's just Taiwan. They're also using data centers in Germany, Poland, and Brussels. Now, of course, they're not solely relying on satellite, but they are relying on satellite data. But all this, don't forget, all this poured into Ukraine. Ukraine spends more than Russia, and Europe and America are matching that, and they're still losing. Now, that's because the price of winning, right? When your costs are 4 times that of the enemy, yes, you have to be very careful. That's the problem. Russia can run at very thin margins and very thin costs because they have the resources and the established factories and the political will. Whereas the West, pretty much, Ukraine is a mess because you're not just spending money on the Ukrainian army, you're supporting all of Ukraine. Ukraine is now a welfare state. Now, as you can see, there aren't any significant gains or losses, but territorial, we have a breakthrough here, small breakthroughs, nothing significant yet, but the gap is closing here. Don't think there's anything important in here. It's just once the Russians go up through here, but it does look like securing a border at times, but it's also securing a defensive line, so it's pretty much the same thing. Securing a defensive line and securing a border, very similar operations. The difference with border is when we start seeing pulling out poles and building fences. Yeah, this is all reshaping all the time. Often local commanders, but once they retake this corner, the reason is they're leaving an exit as they come north, but they don't come north directly. They come north by going west in stages. But whether or not they pass through here would be a mistake. Even this, because you allow flanking maneuvers on in the near future on your lines. So there isn't, of course, advertising revenue isn't what it is, and we're about adpocalypse again, where yet again ad revenue rates and will be cut. Those who don't meet the 500 soon and minimum viewing hours soon probably will see the new ad rates. Well, and it's just each year it's going to get harder to make money, to make a living, without the support of the viewing audience. So in anticipation, I have Empire Veils, that's one word, empireveils.myshopify.com. One-stop shop for interesting artifacts based on my writing. A lot of people have no idea, and I was surprised that recently the last BM was scrapped. Now, that was only the BM prototype. We don't know the fate of the Ukrainian tanks. 3 years ago, they unveiled the prototype and a few production models. Now we know at least one of the prototypes was blown up by the Russians. Another one was captured, but we've never seen it. It is only it's a myth that they can show us video of, but they've never shown us a tank. Now we see plenty of Polish, and some believe these are actually discarded Polish tanks. And in fact, some channels in Poland have wondered where the Ukrainians made tanks when the Russians blew up their tank factory. Well, there's also the opinion that 3 years ago the Germans did take over the Ukrainian tank factory and moved it all out and replaced them with Leopards. Now, recently, the Leopard 1 has started getting refitted in Poland and Germany with new turrets. Now, the first 5 will roll out over the next 5 months, and maybe after Christmas, production will start to rise. That does not say the urgency, does it? It doesn't sound urgent. Nothing Ukraine does sound urgent. Oh, we developed a tank. We show it off. One gets blown up, and suddenly they give up on it. Why? Well, according to Ukrainian bloggers, it was a political disaster. Economic, the production costs, the destruction of the tank was embarrassing, and ultimately, at the end of the day, it's cheaper. Polish T-72 refits were cheaper by far. You get 2 for the price of one of these, and the donated German tanks outperformed the older German tanks outperformed Ukraine's best. But still, Ukraine actually created something on their own, allegedly, but it's more like allegedly. Yeah. Yeah, I remember this story. Yeah, but these were always all along, um, factual, bias distribution. Everything's biased. Ground news. You want, yeah. Now these guys get a lot of views, so they're not fake news, and they have a lot of respect for their work. Rarely need to rely on their clips, but there you go. There's the tank.
Russian video which allegedly
showing the destruction. And there you go. There's the lancet into the side in the front. Now that alone, that panel, the reactive armor went off, as it should have. But showing the comparison, that this tank indeed was not destroyed but captured. Sorry, I got it. It was reported destroyed. This is the BM. Was reported as a Leopard tank, but in fact, it is in fact captured by Russia. And there are more tanks in action in Ukraine than meet the eye. Poland, I think, has six different tanks. America has mainly Bradleys, though it's M1s as well. But they're testing Germany, particularly different guns. I mean, they are turning and prolonging the Ukraine war. Europe and probably America as well, are trying to prolong this war now to test weapons and to basically drag the Russian economy down a bit further so that Europe might actually kickstart. This is the problem. The longer this war goes on, the longer the boom, the longer the bust. Okay, the bust, takes longer to. You should know this from your own life. When you get debt, debt is always longer than you anticipate, right? You're always looking at your debt going, why is it still here? It's you're supposed to be gone. Gone, I tell you. So Russia's launched 7 Iskander missiles and 200. Well, I would say 230 to 240 drones. Ukraine, always the high number, but let's say 20, maybe 30 got through, which they never showed you, never tell you, and always whine about the complaints. And we rarely see from the Russian side the results of this war, of course, so cannot fault Ukraine entirely when it's not entirely one-sided. However, Belgium, the meeting in Belgium, remember Zelensky cozying up to Macron. Which Belgium, this is the big news. 7 F-16s have been transferred permanently to Ukraine, and the rest of the fleet will follow. Now, this is not a new promise. They've been trying to get these F-16s refitted now for some time, and training for the F-16s for some time. Now they have 4 spare parts, 3 operational. This is the same as the last transfer. 3 operational with and they operate in pairs, so there's always one on the ground, and they touch and go in and out of Ukraine from Poland and Romania. The non-operational jets are only they cannot fly, but they'll be delivered. They say, see, look, they even got the old story, 25 to 26. Remember, initially, no deliveries have been announced, and Now, this has, of course, been relying on the replacement F-35s. I believe they're only replacing Belgium has more than 40, but they're tired. Now, the reason why the F-16, the F-35 programs and other programs all slowing down is refitting aircraft that normally would have been used for parts and stripping parts and getting aircraft ready for this war. If it wasn't for this war, we'd be watching our economic booms and preparing for busts. But instead, what we're doing now is just we're giving away our boom, so we got nothing for the bust. And as always, Trump is inheriting Biden's economy. Keir Starmer is basically preparing Britain to sink because he's not British. He's not, just because he lives in England doesn't make him British. Now, again, political nonsense. We want to punish the Russians. Yeah. You're only punishing yourselves. Okay? You're creating hatred where none is necessary. Why? Look at it. They literally, they're pandering to Ukraine's ego, and Ukraine is lapping it up, and Europe is like walking around with so many problems to fix, yet these arsehole politicians with their liberal ideas, we gotta humiliate ourselves. Ha! Look at us, we humiliate ourselves. And I guess the public lap it up and think that these politicians are stupid. No, you're stupid for keeping them You're stupid for not getting rid of them. Now, the Ukrainian media claim that Russia blew up a historic film studio. well, one of Zelensky's little pet projects. This is where they do their little fake green screenery for the walkarounds Kievs. But lately, the studio hasn't been housing costumes and props for years. Slowly and surely over the years, Ukraine has been moving its film studio further west into cheaper locations, particularly Romania. Now, the Kutuzovka film studios were hit by a Iskander, but Russian intelligence, in rare statement, pointed out that wasn't debris. The building was not ignited by fire. It was hit by a missile with nothing left to save. But we can clearly see an ammunition rack. We can see that they were probably intelligence, that they were in the process of constructing drones. And given the amount of parts and cut-offs around, there's no machinery. This is purely assembly point, that they were not manufacturing drones. They were assembling drones imported from England, made in England. They're using civilian infrastructure for military purposes as warehouse, and then complaining when they get blown up. Now, of course, this strike was payback for the strike yesterday, and tomorrow we'll be talking about Ukraine's strike on Russia in revenge and Russia's strike on Ukraine for that revenge. The cycle continues until something of value is lost. Bye, Zelensky. My money's on you. My money's on one of the generals just popping a cap in his ass and blaming the Russians in order to secure a peace deal and re-election. Because there ain't no way Ukraine is trying to turn these people into heroes, but it isn't working. Ukrainians don't care anymore. The government puts on pomp and pageantry, and outside the gates there's 1,000 people every day protesting the deaths of their husbands and sons. But it's not getting through to the West. And all you get is people going, it's Ucophobia, it's Russomania, it's Russian propaganda. No, it's not. You can't handle the truth. Your little brain is sealed off because it's so smooth, and your attention span probably won't even make it this far, so why am I talking about it? But the people who make it this far know, right, that winning countries, remember when Iraq was winning, we won. Yeah, no. See, this is the problem. This lowbrow thinking, right? Now, it's obviously a composite photo. Obviously, the Grad launcher. If the Russians use the rockets as often as they claim, they'd probably do better. But the cost of each rocket is just not sustainable. It's cheaper over weeks or months to hit them with artillery than to hit them with devastating rockets in one day and then take a month to reload. It is a very slow war. No apologies. It is merely an observation that there are things not to like about Zelensky, which should disqualify him and Ukraine from entering Europe. Now, Lavrov's statement is a shift in Russian position where he thinks it'd be jolly good laugh to watch the West destroy itself over trying to fix Ukraine. So remember, Russia tried to rebuild, and it was working with the Americans in Ukraine to try and rebuild Ukraine. And Ukraine just kept electing corrupt people. It's something wrong with Ukraine. And until Ukraine wakes up one day, the same with people of Chicago wake up one day and go, you know what? I'm gonna elect white Republicans. I'm gonna stop hating white Republicans, and suddenly all these people are gonna start living better, happier lives, but they don't want it, because if they give up their misery, apparently that gives up their purpose in life, that they have to be miserable. It's something deeply, fundamentally, psychologically broken with some people, and there's no getting through to them. There is no saving the fool who thinks that Ukraine are the good guys and that Russia's the bad guy, that Russia's the aggressor, when the war in Ukraine was started before 2022, before the Russian invasion. It's like the Vietnam War did not start with the American intervention. It started over 100 years prior with the resistance against French occupation. And this is the thing. It's like the French occupation of Algeria. Now the Algerians trying to occupy France. Algeria's going to suffer the same again. You know, they're going to suffer yet again. Eventually the French will wake up one day and go, you know what? I'm sick of Algeria. Fuck Algeria. Fuck off Algeria. Just like the Irish woke up and said, we're fucking sick of immigrants coming here telling us how to live, telling us that this is their country now. When they got independence days, Mandami, the world is slowly and surely trying to right itself, whether it's the Chinese Empire, the end of the Soviet Union. We're going to see the end of Europe. We're going to see the end of the Pan-African Union as well. There's no love there in Africa. Right now, the South Africans are bitching about, was it the Nigerians? No, Angolese? No, just north of, trying to think. I know it started with M. A group of people who've been migrating their way south for over a century now. And now they've decided South Africa is now going to be their new homeland. And the Zulus don't want anything. The Zulus want them out. They're turning Soweto back into Soweto is a ghetto, but they're trying to clean up Soweto because that's one of the biggest, promises and one of their biggest failures. But, South Africa is having power outages because these people cut down power poles and steal the copper. And they're so brazen now. They steal the copper wires from the compounds and sell them back to the company. And then they try to steal it again. It's only going to get worse because people don't know what to do with these criminals. And I'm telling you, it's only going to be, you're going to have lots of Carmelo Anthony's soon, all whining that they're just trying to survive. And people aren't going to have anything but fatigue. Heck, I think most people have Ukraine fatigue. I think Ukrainians have worn out their welcome. It's just the European leaders. And I don't like the pragmatic approach that Trump has sometimes. But other times, when you look at the long-term results, you can't argue with the long-term results. And I guess it's because he realizes that you got to give fools at least a little bit of something. Otherwise, they won't do anything. So, and yeah, you can't regime change Ukraine because Zelensky's a symptom, not the problem. And that his death is only going to be satisfying because I hate hypocrites who engage in ethnic cleansing, and then complain that they're persecuted or the chosen ones, whatever narrative fits them. Nothing. You're not special. We're sick of you. We got so many fatigues now. We just might as well say, the West has fatigue, and I'm not against Europe trying to save Ukraine, but they can't be saved. That's the problem. Europe just can't realize that there are types of people you cannot save. And you cannot save the fool. Now, hopefully, going forward, it appears, or it sounds to me sometimes like it, I am rather joyful in the news lately. And there is growing amount of resistance to the liberal world order. And the manosphere is slowly growing. So thank you, each and every one of you. But can you please hit that like button? Really helps with the algorithms and support the channel. I mean, I got some of you to join my Patreon. Thank you. And hopefully buy my book, buy my merch. I really appreciate each and every one of you just making it this far. See you in this next video. Bye for now.